Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed, because once you hear what was really on that camera, you'll wish you hadn't hit play. It started on a gray Sunday morning in the small college town of Ridgefield, Oregon, population barely 12,000, the kind of place where people still left their cars unlocked and waved at passing strangers. But that sense of quiet safety ended the day Emily Carter's camera was found. Emily was a 21-year-old photography student at Ridgefield State University. She'd gone missing 6 days earlier after leaving a late-night campus exhibit where she'd presented her latest project, a series titled People When They Think No One's Watching. Her friend said she left around 9:40 p.m. carrying her vintage Canon and a tripod. She told one of them she was heading to the old industrial park to capture some night textures before curfew. She never came home. Search teams combed through wooded trails and drainage ditches. Nothing. No phone, no backpack, no camera. Then, almost a week later, a dog walker stumbled across a torn strap in the brush near the edge of Miller Creek. At the end of that strap hung a mud-caked DSLR. The name E. Carter was etched into the underside of the body with a silver pen. When investigators powered it on, they found one intact SD card, 53 photos, and one video file time-stamped 10:22 p.m., the same night Emily disappeared. Detective Laura Hendricks, a 30-year veteran of the Ridgefield Police Department, described that moment in her later interview. "I remember thinking, finally, a lead that would show us what happened. But when the footage started rolling, every hair on my neck stood up. Something was off, very off." The footage began normally, Emily's steady hand adjusting focus on a row of abandoned warehouses. Her breath was audible in the cold air. The kind of footage you'd expect from a student photographer testing light balance, short pans, still frames, artistic shots of rusted doors and street lamps. But then, around the 2-minute mark, she points the camera toward the far end of the alley, where a single light flickers in one window. She zooms in. There's movement inside, a shape. Then the screen jitters. For 30 seconds, the footage becomes almost incoherent. Rapid zooms, jerky camera shakes, faint muffled audio that sounds like whispering. A hand, someone else's, appears briefly in frame, then it cuts to black. The next frame is a still image taken 30 minutes later, time-stamped 10:55 p.m. It shows a close-up of Emily's own face reflected in the lens of her camera, eyes wide, unfocused. Her expression frozen between fear and realization. And then, nothing. No more photos. The press caught wind of it within hours. Local news called it the camera clue. Online forums flooded with theories: a stalker, a professor affair, a cult. Detective Hendricks kept her distance from the noise. She'd seen dozens of missing person cases die in the shadow of online speculation, but this one was different. She couldn't shake the image of that reflection, the way Emily's eyes seemed to be looking past the camera, not into it. When forensics analyzed the SD card, they discovered something stranger: fragments of deleted files, mostly system corrupted, but with one partial file name visible: Session 2, Parkhouse. The word Parkhouse matched a condemned dorm building on the university's east side, shut down since 2015 due to black mold. Students used to sneak inside for photo shoots, ghost hunts, TikToks. Emily's roommate Jordan swore she'd mentioned going there. She said it had the best shadows, like shadows that move differently. But she was kidding, right? That night, Hendricks and her partner drove out to the old Parkhouse dorm. It loomed like a tomb at the end of a cracked road, windows boarded, graffiti covering the doors. A faded sign read, "No trespassing, property of Ridgefield University." Inside, the air was cold, metallic, thick with mildew and silence. They followed the echo of dripping water down a narrow corridor until they reached a classroom at the end. There, on a broken desk, lay a folded note, brittle and yellowed. On it were Emily's initials, EC, and a smudged fingerprint. The note read, "If anyone finds this, don't believe what's on the tape." It wasn't the SD card. This was written days before the camera had been found, meaning Emily had been here alive after the timestamp on the footage. The discovery turned the investigation upside down. If Emily had written that note after the video, then what exactly was on the footage and who filmed the rest of it? Forensics confirmed multiple sets of prints on the camera, Emily's and another set that matched no one in the university database. Male, rough, cracked fingertips like those of someone who worked manual labor. Detective Hendricks began re-interviewing everyone close to Emily. Professors, classmates, the gallery curator. One name kept resurfacing. Mark Feldman, a former maintenance worker fired for stalking incidents the year before. He'd developed a fascination with art students who photographed campus property. He'd also lived, briefly, in the abandoned Park House dorm. By Wednesday morning, the Ridgefield Police Department obtained a warrant. They raided Feldman's trailer on the outskirts of town. Inside, they found hundreds of photographs, candid shots of students walking home, sitting in class, drinking coffee. Many were of Emily. But there was one image taped to the wall that froze everyone. It was a printout from her last roll, the one showing her reflection. Only this time, her reflection had been cropped out. The caption written in black ink read, "She finally looked back." Feldman was nowhere to be found. Hendricks ordered the roads blocked, the nearby forests swept. Bloodhounds traced a faint scent trail toward the Ridgefield quarry, an old excavation site 3 miles north. At the edge of the pit, searchers found a torn piece of denim matching Emily's jacket. And next to it, buried beneath loose gravel, a small, rusted camcorder. The model dated back to 2008, its battery long dead, but the SD card intact. When they powered it up, there was one file, time-stamped October 12th, 10:58 p.m., 3 minutes after Emily's final photo. The video opened with the same flickering warehouse light, but this time the footage wasn't shot from Emily's Canon. It was from somewhere higher, like an observer watching her. She appears in the frame, walking fast, clutching her camera, looking over her shoulder. She pauses under a lamp, breathing hard. Then she lifts her Canon, points it directly toward the lens of the camcorder as if realizing she's being filmed. Her expression softens into horror. And then a man's voice, low and close to the mic, "Smile for me, Emily." The camera shakes violently. The screen cuts to static. When detectives recovered the footage, there was a second of digital distortion at the end, a single frame containing a different location entirely, a hallway with fluorescent lights, and what appeared to be a mirror image of Emily standing behind the cameraman. Forensics couldn't explain it. There were no timestamps, no edits, no splice marks, just one inexplicable frame that shouldn't exist. Detective Hendricks replayed it dozens of times, convinced there had to be an error, but every copy showed the same impossible reflection, a face that looked just like Emily, standing where no camera should have captured her. By Thursday evening, the FBI had joined the case. The footage was sealed from the public, the quarry declared a restricted zone. But among the investigative files, Hendricks wrote one chilling note in her personal log. If she wrote, "Don't believe what's on the tape," maybe the tape isn't lying. Maybe we are.
2 days after the quarry search, the second camera surfaced. Not from the ground, but from an envelope dropped at Ridgefield Police Headquarters. No fingerprints, no return address. Just a sticky note attached that read, "You missed this one." Inside was a smaller GoPro. Dented, scorched on one edge. It contained one file. The timestamp matched the same hour Emily disappeared. Detective Hendricks sat in the darkened viewing room. only the glow of the monitor lighting her face. The footage opened on a figure wearing gloves, walking through the same abandoned warehouse seen in Emily's photos. Heavy breathing echoed through the mic. The camera panned across graffiti-stained walls, then fixed on a tripod in the corner. Emily's tripod. She was there, in frame, setting up her Canon, facing the window, completely unaware she was being filmed. The GoPro's lens caught every movement, her brushing hair from her face, crouching to adjust the angle, smiling faintly when the shutter clicked. Then her expression changed. She turned, slow at first, then with visible alarm. She was looking directly toward whoever held the GoPro. The camera tilted, briefly capturing a pair of muddy work boots retreating into shadow. Then came her voice, faint but trembling. "Who's there?" No reply. A minute later, the GoPro went black. Hendricks froze the last frame, zooming in on the reflection in a broken window behind Emily. There, half obscured, was the shape of a man, broad shoulders, baseball cap. The reflection caught the gleam of a scar running down his left cheek. It matched the file photo of Mark Feldman exactly. That was enough for a warrant. By that afternoon, state troopers surrounded a condemned auto shop 5 miles south of Ridgefield, Feldman's last known hangout. The air smelled of rust and oil. His truck was parked behind the building, engine still warm, but the man himself was gone. Inside the garage, they found a cot, a pile of clothes, and a corkboard, covered in photographs. Dozens of them, all women, all shot from a distance. Emily's photos were centered, surrounded by notes scribbled in uneven handwriting. She sees more than the others. Her camera doesn't lie. Find what she found. Pinned to the top of the board was a map of Ridgefield, red thread connecting the old warehouse, the quarry, and the Park House dorm. A triangle. At the exact center of that triangle sat an address, 1127 Miller Road. Detective Hendricks drove out there just before dusk. Miller Road was narrow, cutting through an industrial stretch of woods. At the end stood a single structure, a decommissioned power substation fenced off with barbed wire. The gate hung open. She parked, drew her weapon, and moved quietly toward the main door. Inside, the air was damp and humming with faint electrical static. Broken consoles lined the walls. A metal staircase led down to a lower level. The basement was lit by a single flickering bulb. And in the middle of the room, nailed to a wooden beam, was a corkboard identical to the one from Feldman's shop. Only this time, it wasn't photographs. It was screenshots, still frames taken from Emily's camera footage, each one printed and marked with notes in the margins. In one image, Emily's reflection was circled in red ink. Next to it, a scrawled message, "She's still in there." Below the board was a small black box, labeled Session 3. Hendricks hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a third SD card. Back at the lab, the footage on Session 3 appeared to be fragments from multiple recordings. Daytime shots of campus, empty lecture halls, the art department darkroom. But as analysts scrubbed through the data, they found something chilling. None of these were filmed by Emily. Each clip was filmed of her, walking between classes, talking with friends, eating alone at the cafeteria. Whoever filmed her had been shadowing her for weeks, maybe months. At the end of the final clip, a door opens and she steps inside a dim room. The camera lingers on the closing door, and a man's whisper is heard. "She's ready now." Then, static. The FBI's Digital Forensics Unit traced fragments of metadata embedded in the SD cards. The files weren't just simple video. There were layers, encrypted timestamps, camera serial numbers, and something else. GPS coordinates. All 3 SD cards pointed to the same location. Latitude 45.505, longitude -122.678. Downtown Portland. The coordinates led to an abandoned recording studio called Soundline Productions, shut down after a fire in 2016. Feldman had once worked maintenance there. Agents descended on the site overnight. The studio was gutted, burned walls still streaked black. In the main sound booth, a melted control board sat beneath a cracked window. Someone had recently been there, fresh footprints and ash, a half-eaten sandwich, and on the desk, a stack of burned DV tapes labeled only with dates. The most recent one read, October 12th, EC. The tape was nearly destroyed, but lab techs salvaged partial footage. The first few seconds showed Emily again, sitting in a chair under harsh studio lights. She looked exhausted, but not restrained. The camera zoomed in on her face as she whispered something too soft to catch. Then a second figure entered the frame. A man, taller, wearing a black jacket. His face was never fully visible, but the scar was unmistakable. Feldman. He leaned close to her, saying something that made her flinch. The microphone barely caught it. You wanted to see what no one else could, so now you will. Then suddenly, Emily reached toward the camera. The frame shook violently, and the tape cut out. When Hendricks viewed it, she noticed something others missed. In the half-second before the footage ended, the camera caught a reflection in the glass of the sound booth. Behind the cameraman stood another person, out of focus, unmoving. A woman. Blonde hair, same height as Emily, wearing the exact same clothes. The discovery sent a shockwave through the investigation. Was it a double, a projection, or had someone been mimicking Emily for weeks, maybe months, impersonating her movements, her schedule, even her photographs? Hendricks reviewed attendance logs for the week before Emily vanished. The university's security system recorded her student ID being scanned twice at different locations, one in the photography lab at 8:30 p.m., another at the campus gate 5 minutes later. 2 Emilys. Only one could have been real. That night, Hendricks couldn't sleep. She replayed the GoPro footage again, Emily looking into the dark, whispering, "Who's there?" But this time she noticed a faint echo after the question. A second voice, mirroring her own tone, whispering the same words back to her. "Who's there?" It wasn't audio feedback. It was something else. The next morning, analysts confirmed it wasn't part of the recording. It was layered in afterwards, from a different source. Someone had edited the footage before it reached the police.
2 days after the quarry search, the second camera surfaced, not from the ground but from an envelope dropped at Ridgefield Police Headquarters. No fingerprints, no return address, just a sticky note attached that read, "You missed this one." Inside was a smaller GoPro, dented, scorched on one edge. It contained one file. The timestamp matched the same hour Emily disappeared. Detective Hendricks sat in the darkened viewing room, only the glow of the monitor lighting her face. The footage opened on a figure wearing gloves, walking through the same abandoned warehouse seen in Emily's photos. Heavy breathing echoed through the mic. The camera panned across graffiti-stained walls, then fixed on a tripod in the corner. Emily's tripod. She was there, in frame, setting up her Canon facing the window, completely unaware she was being filmed. The GoPro's lens caught every movement, her brushing hair from her face, crouching to adjust the angle, smiling faintly when the shutter clicked. Then her expression changed. She turned, slow at first, then with visible alarm. She was looking directly toward whoever held the GoPro. The camera tilted, briefly capturing a pair of muddy work boots retreating into shadow. Then came her voice, faint but trembling. "Who's there?" No reply. A minute later, the GoPro went black. Hendricks froze the last frame, zooming in on the reflection in a broken window behind Emily. There, half obscured, was the shape of a man. Broad shoulders, baseball cap. The reflection caught the gleam of a scar running down his left cheek. It matched the file photo of Mark Feldman exactly. That was enough for a warrant. By that afternoon, state troopers surrounded a condemned auto shop 5 miles south of Ridgefield, Feldman's last known hangout. The air smelled of rust and oil. His truck was parked behind the building, engine still warm, but the man himself was gone. Inside the garage, they found a cot, a pile of clothes, and a corkboard covered in photographs. Dozens of them. All women. All shot from a distance. Emily's photos were centered, surrounded by notes scribbled in uneven handwriting. She sees more than the others. Her camera doesn't lie. Find what she found. Pinned to the top of the board was a map of Ridgefield, red thread connecting the old warehouse, the quarry, and the Park House dorm. A triangle. At the exact center of that triangle sat an address, 1127 Miller Road.
Detective Laura Hendricks sat frozen in the evidence room, eyes locked on the paused frame of her own face staring back from the screen. The timestamp, 2 hours earlier, meant whoever had filmed her had access to her car, her roots, her life. The realization was like ice in her veins. She turned to the technician beside her. "Where did this file come from?" He hesitated. "It auto-synced from the same drive we pulled the Emily footage from. I didn't upload anything new." That meant one thing. The system wasn't just storing files, it was recording in real time. Within minutes, the lab descended into chaos. Agents unplugged servers, yanked cables, sealed drives and evidence bags. Hendricks, shaking, backed out of the room, her hand still gripping the photo of Emily. She'd been a detective for 30 decades, but nothing prepared her for the feeling that she wasn't investigating a case anymore, she was inside it. At 2:17 p.m., she got a call from dispatch. Officer Keller's car had been found near the river, empty, engine running. Inside, a single envelope lay on the passenger seat, her name written across it in block letters. Inside the envelope, one photo. It showed Hendricks standing in the evidence room from an angle that no camera in the building should have had. And behind her, faint in the reflection of a monitor, was Emily Carter. The task force sealed the department's digital infrastructure that afternoon. Every drive, every network node, but files began duplicating themselves across systems. Footage, case reports, even personal logs, all stamped with a recurring watermark, Session 4, Live. Some thought it was a virus, others a leak, but Hendricks knew better. Every photo, every video, every angle came from cameras they'd already seized. And yet they were capturing new moments. Whoever was running this operation wasn't gone. They were watching from within the very evidence meant to expose them. That night, Hendricks returned to the Ridgefield substation, the triangle's center, alone. The area was supposed to be cleared, but her gut said otherwise. She parked her car and sat for a long time in silence, listening to the rain tick across the windshield. Then she stepped out, flashlight cutting through the dark. Inside, the air buzzed faintly, like electricity trapped in concrete. Her beam swept across the same room where she'd found the corkboard days earlier. Only now the board was gone. In its place was a single monitor glowing faint blue. On screen, a paused video feed. Her own body, standing in that exact room. Same position, same angle, same flashlight beam cutting through the dark. She reached toward the keyboard and hit play. The video moved, but the person in the footage didn't mirror her movements. Instead, the other Hendricks lowered the flashlight and spoke directly into the lens. "You're late." The sound of footsteps echoed from somewhere behind her. She spun, weapon raised. No one. The video continued playing. The other version of her smiled faintly, then turned toward the camera's left side, toward the same shadows where she now stood. Then from the real darkness, a second light flickered on, a flashlight beam sweeping toward her from the far corner. "Detective Hendricks?" It was Officer Keller's voice, calm, too calm. He stepped forward slowly, hands visible, eyes unblinking. "You shouldn't be here alone." Her grip tightened on the gun. "Where's Feldman?" Keller tilted his head. "He's finished his part." "What do you mean, finished?" He smiled slightly. "He wanted to capture something real. Fear, discovery, regret. You gave him that." Behind him, the monitor switched feeds automatically. The screen now showed live footage. Hendricks and Keller standing face-to-face in the substation basement. A red REC icon blinked in the corner. She glanced up at the nearest security camera. Its lens was cracked, wires cut weeks ago. Yet it was recording. "You're broadcasting this?" Keller stepped closer. "Not broadcasting, archiving."
He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small remote. One button. When he pressed it, the lights dimmed and every monitor around the walls flickered to life, each displaying a different scene. Students walking across campus, hallways, cafeterias, classrooms, hundreds of live feeds from hidden cameras. And on every 10th screen, the same image appeared. Emily Carter, standing silently, holding her camera, staring directly into the lens. "Impossible," Hendricks whispered. She wanted the truth. She found it. Cameras don't just record reality, they choose it. "What did you do to her?" He looked genuinely puzzled. "We didn't do anything. She just kept filming until she became part of the footage." She lunged at him, slamming him against the wall. "Where is she?" He didn't answer. Instead, his eyes darted toward the monitor behind her. "You're asking the wrong question." She turned. The screen now showed the inside of her own home office, live. Her desk, her chair, her open laptop streaming this exact moment. The camera panned, shakily, until it landed on a framed photograph, her daughter Megan, age 12. Then the feed glitched, showing the same photo again, but this time, Megan's eyes were open, looking directly at the lens. "What did you do?" she shouted. Keller whispered, "It's already recording." The monitors flickered violently. Audio feedback screamed through the room. Every screen now showed one looping clip, Emily's reflection whispering the same words Hendricks had seen in her note. "Don't believe what's on the tape." The power blew out. When the backup lights came on, Keller was gone. Only his radio remained on the ground, still transmitting faint static. She climbed the stairs, breath ragged, calling for backup. The line cut off halfway through her transmission. Outside, rain soaked the gravel as she reached her car. The dashcam light blinked red. She pulled the plug. It kept blinking. Then her phone buzzed. One new message, no sender. A video attachment. She opened it. The footage was from her own body cam, showing her walking toward the substation, gun drawn, flashlight steady. But the last frame didn't end when she left the basement. It kept rolling, following her outside, watching her climb into the car. From the passenger seat, the final second zoomed in on her reflection in the window. And just before the video cut out, a faint voice whispered, "Smile for me, Laura." 3 days later, the Ridgefield Police Department held a press conference. They announced the case was closed. Both Mark Feldman and Officer Keller were presumed dead after an explosion at the substation that same night. The FBI sealed all related files. Every piece of footage was archived under federal classification. But a week later, a data leak appeared on an underground forum. 53 new videos uploaded anonymously, each one tagged Session 5, Reflection. The first video opened with a title card, Ridgefield Investigation, October 19. And then Detective Laura Hendricks appeared on screen, smiling, camera in hand, filming the viewer. If you think this story was dark, you haven't seen the next one. Hit subscribe, drop a comment, and remember, some footage isn't meant to be watched twice.